Ladies and gentlemen, gather around for a unique look into the world of custom motorcycling. We've gathered some of the industry's top builders and fabricators on this stage to show you their skills live and in person. Watch as they chop, grind, and weld their creations into existence right before your very eyes. Feel free to ask questions at any time directly to your host, Pat Jansen. The doors to the shop are open, so pull up a stool, kick back, and welcome to the Grease and Gears Garage.
And now clap. Everybody clap. Clap, Manny. That means you should clap. Thank you. He's not even paying attention. He clap. I like that. Grease and Gears Garage. What are we? We're a bunch of greasy mechanics. We travel around the country. There's four of us kind of in the Grease and Gears Garage crew all the time. It's Chris Callen and his wife Heather. They have Cycle Source magazine. I like the shirt there, buddy, representing Sin Central Garage, Iowa. And there's Mark Perschetti, who he and Chris have flat broke rods and chops in Pittsburgh. My name's Pat Jansen. I've got Sin Central Garage in just outside of Des Moines, Iowa. But what we do is we travel around with our tools on stage, and we invite other builders from around the country, custom motorcycle builders, to come up on stage and just do one thing that they do pretty typically in their shop, so that we can give you guys a slice of life in a shop. Not a lot of people get to hang out in custom motorcycle shops. But we do it not just to be able to say, hey, look at me, I'm cool. You know, we do it because we want to inspire, educate, and entertain you guys and let you know that you can do custom things to your motorcycle. Doesn't matter if you're riding a dirt bike, a BMW, a Honda, a Yamaha, a Harley, a Royal Enfield, a Triumph. Doesn't matter what you're riding. You can customize your bike, and we do things from all the way from performance to aesthetics. How your bike's how you can change it, customize it so that it does the things you want it to do in terms of performance, or aesthetically, things that you can do to change your bike, either to change the way it looks or to change your comfort level on them. We Facebook Live everything, so believe it or not, a guy like me is being watched by I think today probably about 50,000 people usually at a Sunday show. So you can go back, I tell you that because you can go back to J&P Cycles, world's largest distributor of aftermarket motorcycle parts, carries our feed. So you can go to their website, motorcycleshows.com, Progressive International Motorcycle Show that's invited us to be on the tour for 7 shows. And you can go to Cycle Source magazine, or you can go to our YouTube page, which is Grease and Gears Garage. So if there's something that you miss or something you'd like to see, we've narrowed tanks, built springers, fabricated from scratch out of flat steel, gas tanks. We've done all kinds of stuff on here. One of the things I do have to tell you is we got a lot of people on stage right now. These guys are, we've been building in Long Beach. We committed that we were going to build a motorcycle from scratch. We started with a raw frame, an FXR style frame from Paco out in Nevada, or Nevada, depending on what part of the country you're from. But we started with a bare frame, and in Long Beach, when Chris and Heather hit the ground there, they got on Craigslist and they found the GSXR front end for it for $600 with brakes and everything and controls, and so it was a good deal. But this is truly, we're building a chopper, really. I mean, we're just using found parts, making things happen. And so we've been building that bike on stage now for 7 shows. And Chris, how many days did that give us? Basically, when you break it all down between travel, setup, tear down, Christmas, Thanksgiving, that all's happened, we basically built this bike in 4 weeks. Danny over at Zippers, a good local performance shop here, was building the motor for it. We just got the motor at this show, so what Matt's now doing is Matt has been feverishly pulling 5 wiring harnesses. Yeah. Matt started the weekend as a beta male. He's now an alpha male. He will bite your face. He was a mild-mannered guy, and now he's nigh unto outlaw, this guy.
It's really disappointing for me because Matt was a good friend before this weekend.
Yeah. Chris showed up with a garbage bag that had 1 wiring harness in it and a box that had 4 more and said, hey, Matt, mind wiring that bike this weekend?
Well, listen, in our defense, typically we're building choppers with 6 wires. You know what I mean? So throw in some O2 sensors, a fuel management system. It's just
switches on the handlebars. Who uses those anymore, right?
Listen, craziness. So, but it has been nuts. I mean, a wonderful opportunity because what we did in 7 of these shows, 90 days, around the country. We got to work with some of the most talented people.
Wow.
Evan Favara worked on this. Nick Boyer worked on this. You know, Chris Richardson, everybody that came on this stage to do Grease and Gears Garage stuff, we conned into working on the War Pony a little bit too. So if not for my friends,
we've got Ben Davis from Legion Cycle Works here. We got Fenton Fadley here.
Everybody. Hammy's in the house. Bert's here.
Yeah, I mean, we got everybody up here working.
But that's really what it's about. And I mean, this is the thing. Anybody that grew up motorcycling, when there was a guy in the neighborhood that was building a motorcycle, everybody showed up. One guy did the paint, one guy did the motor. You know, there was guys that could do wiring. Matt stepped up like that and said, hey, I can do wiring. And he'll probably never talk to me again. But that's what we always did, man.
It turns out he's not very good at it. No, I was just kidding, Matt. Keep going.
I have a propensity to tell stories. That's why I have a magazine. But that's the best way that it sounds.
Yeah.
Big fish. Yeah.
Exactly.
So, but I mean, that's the tradition of it, man. Doing motorcycles is not a solitary project. The thing that you'll never see hanging on a wall, in a package, in a catalog, is that thing that happens between two guys over a beer in a garage talking about the perfect motorcycle.
Absolutely.
That's where all of this starts and ends. And, you know, our garage is just a little bit bigger, and there's no beer up here, but we're still digging on that.
That was the first show. They kind of put a kibosh on the drinking beer on stage. Turns out you're not allowed to do that here. Who knew? Who knew?
Kind of, I mean, insurance. So
insurance, yeah we're on the progressive stage, so it was so anyway, that's what they're doing over here. We had made the commitment at the first show in Long Beach that we were not only going to build a bike, but we were going to build a bike, and that in Washington, D.C., Chris was going to ride this bike off stage. That was a great dream in Long Beach.
I just want to hear it run today. That would be, I mean, we're in short order here. We're going to tuck a bunch of this stuff away, and we're going to get fired up. Obviously, it still needs to come apart for the final paint. We're going to make the wiring more pretty, but we're going to get it running here today.
Pretty much. The exciting thing is that here in the next hour and a half, while we're going to build some handlebars with R.J. Powell from Cutting Edge Customs in West Virginia. But you're going to see this bike that went from a bare, raw frame without even all the parts collected for it, now is going to be what could be a ridden motorcycle here on the stage. And so Chris said it yesterday. He told us all, he said, listen, the reason we have to finish this is because he gave the show his word that we would have this bike finished. And so a man of his word, this bike's going to...
Well, plus we only have until the end of August to get to Bonneville. And, I mean, that's the real deal, man. We're taking this bike to Bonneville, to the Salt Flats, and we want to get it out there for some time runs. So, but stick around. We'll see what happens.
Yeah, man. So, thank you. Smattering of applause from my mic. See, this thing fell out. Did you see that? Could you come put it back on for me? I just like it when he does this. Thanks. You know what he hates the most? Mike and I have worked together for years, him miking me up and everything, because he travels with me. I usually have this on every day, just walking around, because I'm a celebrity mic guy, right? No. Mike's my mic guy, but when he goes to put this on my shirt, the lavalier, I do that on his hand. It freaks him out. I like it. But anyway, so what we got today is, this is R.J. Powell back here in his white safety glasses. Cutting Edge Customs does a great job. He helps a lot. War Pony has been in and out of your shop over this show series couple times, and so we do that. We just rotate. I mean, nobody ever helps me with my projects, but they all help each other with their projects.
You live too far away.
I know. I live in Iowa. It's too far away. But what you're going to do for us today is you're going to show us how to fabricate a set of handlebars.
Pretty simple, like rabbit ear style handlebars, like a lot of the chopper guys are doing right now, kind of a throwback to the 70s. There's a couple bikes out here in the JP Cycles Builder Showcase, got a similar bar on them. We've got some extravagant tools here. I mean, a really nice tube bender, things like that. But aside from the tube bender, these can be done really simply with hand tools. Today we're not going to use a notcher, one of the pieces that I'm going to make. I'm going to do it by hand with a grinder, but these could be made in a garage. You could actually take a piece of tubing like this, fill it up with some sand, cap the ends, heat it up with a torch and bend it and get it, just what you wanted.
That's old school. That's how
I used to do that back in the day till I got a bender. But basically what we're going to do, like I said, a rabbit ear style bar with a little a little joint of pipe in the center to connect the two, and it'll have a cool little 70s look for a little chopper or king and queen seat type bike.
Or a weird looking like KTM 350 with rabbit ear bars on it.
Oh, that bike you ride.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Hey, is there anybody out here that has been thinking about building a set of bars or buying a new set of bars for anything? No? Awesome. Thanks. I'll just be over here. I'm going to go look at some Indians. No, does anybody want to, what I was looking for is if there's anybody interested in kind of help. Yeah, come on up. Help with this process, and you can kind of see it. You can come around or you can jump up. Doesn't matter. As tall as you are, it looks like one step for you, but come around.
That's what I was thinking. Just step right up.
Oh, man, we were doing awards a few years ago for the JMP Cycles Ultimate Builder Custom Bike Show, and a guy that tall, he was a little taller, Chris Moose, runs from the back through the crowd to jump up on stage, and he made it within a quarter of an inch. Slid all the way to the back of the stage.
Not what we got going on today. We don't have enough tubing for that, actually.
What's your name? Perry. Very good, Perry. I'm going to grab Perry a microphone just to sit it here so in case you have a question or something.
What we're going to do, typically we'll start out, you just got a straight piece of tubing. Majority of Harley-based bars are 1-inch tubing. We usually use, I like to use 120 wall tubing for them. A little heavier, but strength is nice. I mean, you don't want the bars to break on you. So I've set up a little jig. Most Harley triple trees are 3.5 inches from center to center from the mounting points. So I've basically found my center. I have a mag drill at my shop. I have a pretty extravagant jig that I use to do bars at my shop. I didn't want to haul that all the way here, so it's out of the scrap bin. We drilled a couple holes in it, found the center points, made sure everything was parallel, straight, whatnot. We can clamp that right to the table, and then when we actually lay our bars down, we can lay it down here, figure out our height and our pullback for our bars. So it's pretty universal. It's simple to make. Anybody could make it in their garage, simple hand tools. These, if you have a lathe, you can make these. It's just 1.5 inch solid stock drilled. It's 1/2 inch bolts, 1/2 inch by 13 bolts drilled and tapped. We've actually cut them down so they will actually slide into the end of the tubing.
Or if you don't have a lathe, you can call my buddy Al Wilkerson at Bitter End Choppers in Iowa, and he'll just send you. He makes them every day. He's got hundreds of them on the.
There's a couple. Yeah, there's a couple. Bung King's one that everybody uses. I mean, they have a lot of stuff in stock. So, first you're going to determine how high you want your bars, and that's essentially, these are a simple one because you're going to basically bend 2 pieces of tubing like this to the point that you want them bent to get your look and to get the feel and everything. Normally, this particular bar I like to do to 110 degree bend. I've pre-bent a couple pieces so it goes a little smoother. So I'm not you guys aren't sitting here watching me do all the boring stuff, but I'm going to do a simple bend. So I figured that this particular bar from the top of the risers, or the top of the triple clamp, I want 8 inches of actually upsweep till I go into my first bend. So I'm going to take a piece of tubing. Got a pretty good squared end here. It's close enough for what we're going to do today. And I'm going to grab a pen here that I had in my pocket.
That's the one tool in a shop.
You lose a lot of these.
Ah, man, you can buy 100 Sharpies and you won't be able to find one. The one you do find will be dried out.
So I measured out 8 inches, and that's actually where I'm going to start my bend at, and the bend's going to go this way. And different machines have different radius dies. That's the closest die that we have with this particular machine that's comparable to my bender at home. It's a little bit different, so I'm going to bend this one, but I'm going to end up using this bar and this one down here that I've made up prior to coming here.
It's like the Rachel Ray of handlebar making. Right?
Oh, absolutely, absolutely.
I like it.
So we're going to hop over here to the tube bender.
You guys should be able to see this on your screens to the side.
And we're going to slide this through. And there's a starting arrow on this. We're just going to line those up right there. We're going to
on the die itself, there's a mark on this.
Yeah, it's kind of got 3 positions. This is a really, really slick bender. They're a little on the pricey side, but they are well worth it if you can afford to put one of these in your shop. So we're going to go ahead and try to get to a 0 point here on this till it just starts to catch and lock.
You see that dial indicator on there? Can you see that on the end of the machine? Yeah, I don't have one of those machines.
We got tension right there. Everything's nice and solid. So we have a digital indicator here, basically angle finder. So we're going to 0 that out, and that's basically the start of our bend. And what we're going to do, we're going to go with this. Yeah, this is dialed in at 0 right now, so we know it's perfectly straight. It's going to physically start the bend. So we're just going to hop on it here. We're going to work our way around.
If you're going to be doing this in your own shop, when you're looking for a tubing bender, you're going to want a tubing bender, not a pipe bender. They're two different things. A tubing bender is going to give you isn't going to pinch the material. A pipe bender, if you do this in, it's actually going to give you a flat spot. So you're going to want to make sure that you get a tubing bender. You can get these that are manual. Does Ben have a manual? Was he telling me he's got a manual tubing bender in there? Oh, you're right there. What? Your tubing bender, is it a manual? Yeah. Okay. Yeah, and I've got one that was a manual that now I've made into a hydraulic one that air hooks up to.
Yeah. On these benders too, like every bender is going to react different. Every piece of tubing that you bend is going to react different. You're going to have spring back, and a lot of these benders will have it'll actually calculate the kickback of the tubing for you. So it's a little bit of a guessing game for most benders. This is something you definitely want to keep in your shop. Harbor Freight, like $3.
Is that an ice scraper?
It is. Yeah. I'll scrape your windows the next time we're out. It's cold.
Do it.
We'll leave some marks on there for you.
Good.
But anyways, no, these, if you've got a bike that you see the bars on it that you like, you can kind of walk up to it, figure out your angles with one of these, kind of lock it into place so you're able to duplicate them. So, you know, for all fairness today with this, you know, we can actually put this here. And that pretty much tells us what our angle is going to be. So we could come back over to this, take some pressure off of it. And you can tell we're relatively close.
Yeah.
We're close enough. We're not going to use this piece. I just wanted to show you the use of the bender because the radius is a little bit. It's about a ½ inch difference radius from that bender to my bender.
And that spring back is something that can you address? You have to factor that in. Spring back is going to be. Talk a little bit about spring back.
Well, the spring back, I mean, normal 120 wall tubing, you're not going to have a lot of spring back. I mean, maybe a 3/4 of a degree to maybe 1.5 degrees. Thinner tubing, you're going to have a good bit more spring back. And it varies from you could get one batch of tubing this week, next week get a different batch of tubing. It's going to have completely different spring back. But when you're doing several identical bends in a project, that's where you've got to really pay attention. I mean, it's
anybody can make half a gas tank or half a set of handlebars. The trick is making the other half look the same.
And you can see from the radius right there, that's where how the radius changed just a little bit. This is a tighter radius, and you see those were both measured at 8 inches.
Right.
And it actually makes the tubing shorter from where the bend was started because that bend is tighter. So now that we're done with the bender, we're moving on to the point of getting set up to actually start welding our bungs into the tubes. So we're going to prepare, you could just slide this in here and you could weld around this, but then you're going to do cleanup here. Like if you're going to make this set of bars either powder coated, painted, chrome plated, really nice, you want a nice smooth finish. So if you were to weld those right now, when you go to grind them and clean them up, you're going to get rid of majority of your weld, and you don't want that. You want as much weld as possible. So what we always do is called a slug weld, and I usually on handlebars, small tubings, I'll usually start out with a 1/4-inch drill bit, and for bars I do 2. If I was doing a piece of frame tubing, I would do 4 slug welds in it. If I was joining 2 pieces of frame tubing together, on the bars 2 is going to be sufficient. Well, yeah, basically what we're going to do is, you see how that slug,
Thanks, man.
you got a lot of meat right here that you could weld into. So essentially you could put this in there, weld that there, and it's called a rosette weld is the technical name for it. Everybody just calls it a slug weld. You start out, this one's been pre-drilled. I've drilled and I've actually counterbored beside it to actually add some more meat to weld to. So you're creating like a T. You know, you have all of your weld in the center there, and then on the outside around it you have more weld, so it kind of encapsulates everything together. So what we'll do, we'll hop over here. We're going to do a couple drill bits real quick. I always, if I'm doing a 1/4-inch hole, I always come back with a 1/2 and kind of counterbore it. And we'll hop over here to the vise real quick. We have these real nice jaws that actually hold tubing in a vise, so that actually makes quick work of it, and you're not fighting with your vise. So I've started to pre-drill already. You know, normally you wouldn't have these done. For time's sake, in a thing like this, we're just, you know, we've already pre-started it. So I've got a hole started there. Once they're across, since they're across from one another, I usually just drill straight through the tubing. And then, of course, we've already done this, but we'd put our second bit, which is a little bigger, and we just do a little bit of cleanup right there. Flip this guy over. So, now by the magic of TV, basically, you know, we've got 2 bent bars. We're all drilled, ready to weld our inserts in. So, we need to do a little cleanup in here in the tube and stuff. That's where you would end up having a good set of files, and get all the burrs out of there. You want to work, do you?
Yeah, put them to work, man.
You know how to weld?
I don't know. I'm a general contractor. I build basic.
So you build stuff with wood.
There you go. Say that into there. Tell folks what you do.
I'm a general contractor. I kind of build basic stuff
Yeah.
around the home.
I know how to do 2 things with wood. I can cut it short and set it on fire. Those are the only 2 things I do with wood. And I'll tell you why. My wife, for some reason, thinks because I can weld and work with metal, that I can work with wood. And I'm like, no.
So we're going to do a little bit of cleanup here. We're just going to kind of bevel this just slightly.
Let Perry do that. Tell him what to do. He's going to.
Well, we need to get him a set of glasses. Definitely.
Yeah, we're going to chamfer that edge. Let Perry do it. I want to see if he
Got a
hurts
pair of
himself.
glasses right there.
Well, what he's going to
Here
do
you go.
is, yeah, he's going to chamfer this edge, and he'll talk about chamfering here. Go ahead and tell him kind of what.
Yeah, I'm going to go ahead and do one real quick, and then you do this.
Do the other one.
So basically what I'm going to do, basically just a little bit of cleanup. and then bevel this. Could be done with a hand file. This makes quicker work of it. We'll get this out of your way. We'll put these gloves on.
You know, it is amazing. If you're ever grinding anything, you'll want to wear gloves, and long sleeves are actually super because that's metal shavings that are flying off of there, and it'll look like you've got prickly heat, and except it's more painful. They're actually cutting in, and it's good advice. I don't always take it because I'll be sitting around and it'll look like I have a little pimple on my arm. I'll squeeze it, and a little piece of metal will pop out. I got scars all over me. Do as I say, not as I do.
Perfect. That'll work.
All right.
Thank you much. So what we're going to do now, we're going to get these set in. I'm going to do a little bit of cleanup here with some acetone. Anytime you're welding anything, you want to weld clean metal. It's not as needed on steel as it would be aluminum or stainless steel or whatnot. This is just straight acetone. I just kind of soak everything down, usually on a rag.
He's going to be TIG welding, tungsten inert gas welding. He's going to have an electrode of tungsten about 8 inches long. It's got a shielding gas called argon. The gas doesn't do anything that comes around that out through the torch. It doesn't create, it just protects the surface from contaminants. And so TIG welding in particular really wants everything to be clean. MIG welding, you can get away with a little bit more contaminated surface. With TIG welding, if it's not clean, you might have welds that actually even might look good, but you can get inclusions in them, which is like a little pocket of air. You can get, and it's just wherever that happens, you haven't got good penetration, and that's going to be a weak spot. So,
yeah, and that's a key, especially with handlebars. You really want really good welds, good penetration. Safety's a major concern there.
Yeah, because
you would not want the handlebars to break off.
Hard to ride a motorcycle without handlebars, or even just half a set of handlebars, as it turns out.
So what I do on these, you'll notice there's a small gap between that, and I machine those for that. It just kind of holds it out about 1/16 of an inch, and you can allow more penetration in there, and so there's more weld actually fusing into the metal itself, and then there's less to grind away. So what we're going to do is we're going to get set up here and put a couple of tacks on things.
All right.
And
do we have another welding helmet?
That I could not tell you.
Let me ask Mark. I'd like Perry to see that. Mark, do we have a second welding helmet? A second welding helmet? Okay, that's fine. We're just going to have Perry not look.
He'll have to. Yep.
Yeah. The reason we've got these curtains, is because he looks better in red lighting. Kind of like a go-go welder. Now, this is 7 shows, right? 6 of them we've had one screen up in front of the welding because you get what's called flash burn if you look into a weld. It's the exact same thing that happens if you look into the sun. It'll burn your corneas. Exact same thing. So it doesn't take but that much time looking into a weld to actually flash burn your eyes and your whole face. Your face will feel like you have a sunburn because you basically do. And it can cause irreparable damage to your eyes. So we put these up. This is a welding screen, and it blocks the dangerous rays that are coming out of there. So, but we've done 6 shows, and we've had one screen up front to protect everybody's eyes. Someplace in the building today, there's a fire marshal. They requested in Washington, D.C. that we have 3 screens. So we've got 3 screens. Because they care about you. What's that? And no beer. So no beer, 3 screens. It's crazy. But I will tell you this though: if how many of you know how to weld? You know, it's a great skill to develop. There's a lot of great places you can go, and technical schools or at night or whatever you can take classes. I think in custom motorcycle building, the idea of welding is one of the things that holds people back. Well, I can't weld, so I couldn't make that bracket or I couldn't make that part or anything. A lot of welding shops that'll help you out, but honestly, you can have access to a welder, and it's just practice, practice, practice. You can weld. Trust me, if we can weld, you can weld. But also, if you've got kids or grandkids, teach them how to weld. I don't care what they're going to be. If they're going to be a doctor, a lawyer, whatever, if they ever get unemployed for some reason, you can always find work as a welder, man. I mean, welders, everybody's looking for welders right now. And they can always make good money welding. And when the apocalypse comes, we're all going to need to be able to know how to weld. Mad Max didn't buy that car off a lot, folks. I mean, he built that hot rod. But we've all learned a lot this season, even the Blue Water guys. Turns out a camera can flash burn. Very expensive cameras. If the camera looks into it, it turns out it'll burn the lens of the camera too. I see smoke signals going up. RJ, you doing all right back there? Maybe not. I guess when somebody doesn't answer that question, you're supposed to check on them. I got to hold the screen on. I can't check. I can't. You're on your own, buddy. There was smoke. I'll check in a little bit. Chris Callen just came on stage, said, "Gentlemen, a little update, 60 minutes. We have 1 hour to get this bike started." Nobody's moving any faster. No sense. I am helping. I'm holding the screen, and I'm talking on the microphone. Yeah. All the focus I have is looking pretty on stage. That's all I'm focused. Chris, you're doing a great job. Get to work 1 hour. RJ, hurry up. It's making my arm tired.
I'm taking a break back here.
He's still alive, though. That's good.
All right.
You ready for me to drop this?
Yep, you can drop that.
All right. Look, folks, he's back. We're going to push it backwards so the camera can still be seen.
For the time being.
There we go. Right there's good. All right, RJ, what have we done now?
So, we've got our bungs welded in, basically, just the slug weld part of them.
That camera right there, you can see it on the screen.
Yeah, there we go. So, we've got both of those done. We can actually come in when we're done, do some finish. 10 minutes or so.
Move it. I can move it back.
Yeah, we can move it back. So, what we're going to do, normally we'd let these cool for a little bit. I'd actually finish weld everything like this and then clean everything up. But for time's sake, we're going to go ahead and start putting things together.
Right on.
So if I burn myself, which these guys will tell you,
He did.
Anytime I weld, I burn myself.
Was that last night?
And that's every day.
That was last night, too.
Oh, yeah.
He was welding. We had to make a tool in order to do some work on the bike, and so he welds these things together, and he welded them. I walk over with a little bit of dribbles of Diet Pepsi out of a bottle, sizzle him. 10 seconds later, he reaches around and burns himself on the thing that he just welded. He's not real bright.
No.
But he's not good looking either, so he kind of got the whole package there.
So what we got, basically, we pretty much have a set of handlebars right now. Now, when I cut these, I cut both of these the even length, and we wanted kind of a narrow style bar, so we're going to go with basically our placement. How narrow do we want them? Most of the guys go, and the style today is pretty much right in here, or some of them are about this big.
Yeah.
And I like to have a little bit of leverage and aesthetically pleasing from the way a bike should look, in my opinion. You want a little bit more bar. These are about 28 inches long, each bar. So I mean, you don't want to be out there like that. This would be
those are T-bars.
This would be a Dyna T-bar.
Yeah, those are club bars right there. Now you're.
So you could, we could make something like that, but for today we're going to do something like this. So we need to actually connect these two somehow. You could get really crazy. You could put circles in there. Round rod, another piece of tubing. Normally we'd use a piece of tubing in between there, a wrench. Anything that's a weldable material, you could put. If you had a cool medallion or something that was steel that you thought was cool, you could kind of cut it and shape it and lay it in there and weld it up. And what it's going to do, it's going to actually make your divider that keeps these parallel to one another and keeps them from going in and out. So we're going to grab a wrench, Allen wrench here, and kind of get these snugged into where we want them. We're going to lay them down on the table and measure to make sure both of them are even.
You have the wrench already?
I don't actually.
Okay, I'll grab it.
And it may be over on that table.
What size it is, I think.
Might be this big guy.
There we go.
Oh, there we go. So, I like to do this on a good flat table, which if you have a shop and you're looking for a good affordable table, weldtables.com, they're worth their weight in gold. They're nice. They're nice and flat. You got a lot of places for positioning things. And the cool thing is they have a lot of cool clamps that actually just drop right into place any of these holes, and you can tighten some stuff down. What we're going to do, like I said, I have a jig at my shop for doing this that we can lay these out, pretty much set up any angle that we want and lock the bars into place like
at this point, if you're making your own handlebars, you really haven't had to invest a lot of money in tools. You can invest a lot of money in tools. I mean, hell, we were talking about torque wrenches yesterday and how much a good one should cost. And, we were saying, oh, you could get $75. No, I paid $500. We found a $13,000 torque wrench online yesterday. I mean, it's like,
yeah. I mean, essentially, how I do a layout, if I'm building a motorcycle for somebody, I'll get the client to come to the shop. And when we get to the point of handlebars and seat, we'll get the seating position where they want it. We'll put them on the bike, and then I'll take blocks of wood and actually stack them up on the ground and get their feet where they want them. And then I'll have them just set and where do you feel comfortable? Where does it look? And then we'll take that into, we'll take measurements and measure the angle of where their wrists and hands are. That way, when you're riding it for a longer than up the street to the local watering hole, you're actually out riding it. You're comfortable.
RJ, when you use this, what are you doing? If I wanted to know the distance from there to there, you call it?
Measuring.
Did you say it again?
Measuring.
Measuring. I like that. Measuring.
Anyways.
He's from West Virginia. So, he measures things.
It's a little bit of a dialect, I guess. Completely killed my train of thought, Pat. Thank you. Yeah.
That's why Perry's
knock
here.
him off the stage.
Iowa. What the
Yeah.
Yeah.
From Iowa.
So, you know, I really like that look, you know, somewhere in that area. Now, right now, if we were to weld that, I'm pretty sure one of these is going to be over here, the other one's going to be down here. So we know these are exactly the same length. So what we do, we have a perfectly flat table. We have this tightened down. We're going to get squared up right here. We can measure.
Now he's going to be paranoid about that word.
So we got 12 inches there roughly. And there we're 12 and a half. So we know we need to move one of them down. Come down just a hair more. So there's a pretty good look. Now, we have 2.5 inches right there, and what I always do is I measure.
If this was Pee Wee's Playhouse, you know, buzzers would go off.
A little bit of reading rainbow.
Yep.
So we're going to snug this down fairly tight, and we'll be probably moving this in and out, because what we're going to do, and I want to snug this down, and you know, right now this is pretty much a rudimentary makeshift jig for setting these up, but it does work. So we're going to measure between the bars there. We got right at about 2.5 inches, and so, well, what we're going to do, we're not worried about that right now, and the reason we're not is we're going to cut this piece to fit right here, and then we're going to slide that piece in there. And wherever we want it, you know, I usually like to put them like right in the middle somewhere. What we're going to do, once that's cut and it fits there, we can squeeze the bars in here to it, tack it all together, and then it's perfectly straight, and it'll lock all of this in. So now we need to determine what we want to use for the center of this. We'll probably use a piece of tubing. What we'll do, we'll just actually zip a piece of tubing off of this. And so this being 1-inch tubing, we want to actually cope around this. And normally you'd cope it with a tubing notcher. We don't have a tubing notcher today, so we're going to do some coping with a right angle grinder. You could do it with a hand file. It's going to take a lot longer. We'll knock it out real quick with that. So we wouldn't want to cut this piece 2.5 inches. We actually would, I normally add about 1/2 inch to the overall length of it. So we're at 2.5 inches, so we're going to cut this piece 3 inches long.
And the reason you do that is because you're going to cope it. You're going to make basically little fish mouths on
Correct.
the end, and that's going to give material that's going to hang over the bars on the side half the distance, and that's going to give them something to weld
Because
to.
essentially that, and I don't know if that cameras could show it.
Yeah, they can do
Yeah.
everything. Eggs of miracle work.
If you butt that up, you know, you have some overhang there. You know, you could, a lot of guys would weld that in there and fill it up. That's
They would do it
the
with a stick welder.
Yeah, it's not the correct way to do it, you know. What happens when you use a stick welder?
It'll sold, but it's going to be ugly.
Correct.
I've got a 48 Indian at the house, chopper from the 60s. They put it together with a stick welder.
2.5
ugly.
inches, so we're going to cut a 3-inch piece. Yeah, and right here, we'll actually cut it out here so everybody can see it. We'll clamp this guy down to the table.
You guys got your safety glasses on? I think Perry's probably a boss at work. He's kind of intimidating. Have you guys noticed that? He's just kind of it's a serious dude. Is he a serious dude?
Hey, Pat, did we have a...
A rainbow, a donkey, a puppy,
Never mind.
unicorn.
So cut 3 inches off this and that marker.
What's that?
And your marker.
I
He just
haven't
doesn't talk about his donkey?
I haven't marked it.
What do you need, RJ?
Nothing.
Sharpie's gone? I told you guys that. I found it. Sharpies, man. I don't know what it is with Sharpies. Sharpies and 10mm sockets.
That'll work.
They end up someplace together. 10mm socket and a Sharpie are doing terrible things someplace together. Never where they're supposed to be. These portable bandsaws are kind of cool, and if you get on YouTube, you can find a lot of different guys. Guys are, I think they're actually somebody's manufacturing and selling them, but you can actually get these things so they'll mount on a wall, so you can take them down and still use them portably, or you can connect them to the wall and use them as a stationary bandsaw now too. That's really handy for the home garage builder.
Might be warm.
Bending over's hard.
So, won't go in there. So now we're gonna work on that. We're gonna cope that. I'll put these on because I'm very accident prone when it comes to power tools.
If I could do one thing in my shop more consistently, it would be wear gloves. Any protective device. I mean,
I'm bad. I'm
you're
very
doing
bad
stuff.
about that
Just take
myself.
it doesn't take long to put gloves on. I don't know why. For some reason, to me, that seems like it's an enormous task, but it's not. Now, the other thing that he was talking about, there are tools called coping tools. You can get them so that you can set them up with hole saws in your drill press or just on your drill. Eastwood, I'm sure somebody else does, but I know that Eastwood sells a little jig where you can put your hand drill in it and you can make a coping. Their coping tool actually uses a hand drill, and so you can do that.
Yep.
Then there are bigger machines that actually are more like mills.
Hole saws are a common thing people use. Pro Tools, there's several. Harbor Freight has them. It's a cool little tubing notcher. They just take a regular hole saw, you put it in there, find your angle. Especially like this is a pretty simple cope because it's, you know, they're perfectly in line with one another. We don't have a big compound angle or anything like that. When you start messing with the angles and you got one that's straight up and down, then you have one that's like a 45, they can get very, very complicated. A lot of the times I'll actually take cardboard. I'll wrap cardboard around the piece of tubing and slide and tape it and then slide it down and then just whittle away at it at a knife until I get the look I'm going for. Then slide it off, put it onto the piece of material that I'm getting ready to coat, mark it with a Sharpie, and then you just start whittling away at it. If you've got a mill at your shop, Bridgeport mill or a knee-type vertical mill, you can put a milling bit in there. You can set it up in your vise and come into it that way. Those are the more sophisticated ways. You could even sit down with this round file and set, and there are some notches that I've had to make before that none of my tools at the shop will make, and you'll have to literally sit there and whittle away at it with a file to make it work, because essentially you want this cope, you know, and we've got a little ways to go, and it's easy to go a little amount and just keep going, because you don't want to go too much, because you can't, you could go back and fill it up with weld. It's not the right way to do it.
Well, in TIG welding, again.
Yeah, you want the tightest fitting.
With anything, you want the tightest. You don't want a gap there. With TIG welding, you sure don't. It just doesn't fill gap well at all. So. But I was surprised. There is a world-class builder, Carl Pusser. He's had bikes in multiple magazines. He was just at the National Championship in Chicago for J&P Cycles Ultimate Builder Custom Bike Show. And I went to his shop one day and was helping him build a frame, and I was looking around for his coping tool, right? Carl does it all by hand. He's old school, man. He says, no, man, I just do this. And so it just depends on what you're comfortable with, but he's quick at it, and he's got a good artistic eye for, sometimes you just have a feel for something, and he's really got a good feel for how to cope those angles by hand.
So we're getting closer. We're nowhere near yet where we need to be.
And we say this with everything. If you're going to start, and this is a project, honestly, that, if you've got just some modicum of tooling at your shop, some tools at your shop that you can do, but obviously, we're here to inspire and educate and help you customize whatever it is you're riding, either so that you're more comfortable on it, performs better for you, or just stands out and has a different aesthetic look that's pleasing to you. If you're on a dirt bike, a Harley, a Honda, a Yamaha, this is the kind of project, making your own handlebars, that you can get into and work at. But with whatever you're doing, we always say just be patient too. It's the first time you've done it. The first time you do something that's usually not your best. Think about prom night. Okay? Not your best. Not your best. I don't care what you think, sir. It wasn't your best. I saw him go, oh, come on. As many times as we mention Harbor Freight up here, they ought to be a sponsor.
I was getting ready to actually put my address out there so they can send me my check.
Oh, yeah. They'll send you a 20% off coupon. That's what
I get those already.
They're going to send you that.
Slide it down to the top.
Right. And we're going to go a little farther. I just like going a little bit at a time and try to keep everything as close as possible. It's getting a little hot because it's such a short piece.
Stop whining and get to work.
Right? Hot. How's the guys doing on the War Pony?
I'm afraid to ask, and now I'm going to have to because you've made it awkward. All right, guys. Oh, man, look at that. The tank's going on. You get over here and bother Chris. Chris, how are we doing?
It's incredible. Fever of activity.
It's a fever of activity. It is very feverish over here. It's actually so much cooler in this corner of the stage than it is out there. I think, do you guys have sun lamps on me today? It's tanning me up?
Oh, yeah.
So listen, you guys do me a favor. Put your hands together for the guys that are around this bike, because they've been in this building around the clock. At night when everybody goes home, they stay till midnight. And we've been trying so hard to fire this thing up for you. We're really close now.
And then lock it all together. Yeah.
War Pony came about. It's a great story. You'll go back and look at some of the Grease and Gears garage clips about War Pony. It's a great story. Chris Callan, owner, founder, editor, Cycle Source magazine, second largest motorcycle magazine in the world. Actually built that magazine on the back of a bike called Black Pearl. It was a 2003 Harley Dresser. He rode the thing and had 250,000 miles on it when he loaned it to a friend, and it got T-boned. Totaled the bike. Friend was okay. But he rode that bike. Its epic journey, it was called Black Pearl. Its epic journey was from Key West, Florida to Alaska in what was called the Hokahay Run. And it was a race where you only got directions like written down. It wasn't like go to this city. It was turn right on 24, go to the oak tree, turn left, you know, that kind of stuff. 1,000 miles a day, basically. Chris did it in 11 days. And the Hokahay was raising money for the Lakota reservation because they were having a hard time with their clean water supply. And so they did that. And Chris took Black Pearl and kind of painted it up a little bit with Crazy Horse, the famous Lakota chief, his war pony's symbols that he would put on his pony when he rode into war. So the bike gets totaled and whatnot, and but Chris, that was that bike's like spiritual moment with Chris. And so we took the drivetrain out of it, and that's been implanted in this bike. And so this bike ended up being called War Pony, and eventually will not be matte black. It will eventually have a paint job that is Crazy Horse's War Pony kind of depicted on that motorcycle. So, but yeah, that has been a huge labor of love, and there have been at least 30 of the world's best builders working on that motorcycle to get it to there. Perry, is he doing all right? Is he doing? What RJ's making there are, I mean, I think somebody could correct me. I'm sure somebody on Facebook will, whether they're right or not. But I think technically those things that he's making, when you're just doing that simple coping, they're called fish mouths because it looks like a fish mouth.
Yeah, basically I'm just fish mouthing the tubing so it actually has a nice fit over top of the other tube. And the key is to have it as nice and tight as possible with the other tube, so you have it, you know, the less you have to weld. And you can see we're getting in there. It's going to be a nice finish. We're going to take a little bit more off of it so it just slides right down into here. And then once it's slid into there, we know that's the perfect width of this, and it'll keep these bars parallel all the way to the top of the rise.
Chris is developing a craft project.
Well, I wanted to show you guys something real quick. So putting any painted parts together with hardware on fresh paint is something I like to stay away from. So you see this from time to time, guys using leather washers. A super simple thing. You can buy a set of tools like this, these cutters at Harbor Freight. And all I'm going to do is, well, I mean, you can buy them other places too, but let's face it.
I just said they should be a sponsor.
So I'm going to match up the size of my washer.
It's good leather.
And once I get that, I'm going to match up the size of my hardware. And that just gives me a little protection between my hardware and my freshly painted surface. It's a nice little leather squash washer. So,
that's a nice,
you know, easy set of tools to pick up, and you can do those all around. I do them on my exhaust mounts, on the frame tabs and everything, man. It keeps things nice.
It looks good. Thank you, Chris. That's a good word. I don't do that. I will now probably end up doing that. I learned something today. Chris is a real smart fella. Just ask him. Perry, what are you riding? What do you ride?
2000 Road King.
2000 Road
Yeah.
King? All right. That's my newest bike is well, now I've got a newer one it's a shop bike, but mine is a 97 Road King. So, but my uncle's got a 2000 Road King. He just loves it.
It's my first bike, and I just love the whole culture, and
Yeah. Right on.
it's a real treat, man. Thank you.
Oh, you're welcome, man. Well, I mean, anytime, this really is exciting. I mean, and I encourage people, guys, we're always looking for stuff to do. Getting 4 or 5 guys and a case of beer in the garage and saying, hey, man, let's go back and watch that Grease and Gears garage segment. Let's look at what they really did and see if we can make a set of handlebars. Well, if you're riding with 4 or 5 guys and you can make your own handlebars, I mean, that's pretty cool, Oh, man, you hit me. Why are you hitting me? Coming. Now he's leaving.
So we are almost there.
Send it out, yeah. Chroming used to be something that a lot of mom and pop shops could do, but now with the EPA regulations, it has put most small to medium-sized chromers out of business. You got to be a pretty big enterprise to do chrome now. So, in Iowa, we've got a great chromer.
We've lost so many good chromers, and I live 3 hours from here, and there was a couple good ones in this area,
Baltimore,
yeah.
But and it would be easy to go, the stupid government.
So you
but
see,
chroming is a brutal environmental process. I mean, it's really harsh, and
almost.
And a lot of people didn't take good care, even when there were rules. A lot of people didn't take good care with what they were doing.
Stupid government. I'll say it. Stupid government.
Stupid government.
It was an industry that was destroyed by regulation rather. And I mean, that's the thing that we face today. Everybody wants to be responsible for the environment, but you can't make the process of the regulations and the licensing and everything so hard that people can't make a living, especially in an existing industry. If it's an emerging industry, that's an opportunity for you to come in.
But wiping out a lot of businesses, that wasn't. And there were some ways we could have done that. So anyway, yeah, trying to do your own chrome and stuff. There are now a lot of processes being created now, though. Hydrographics, where you can dip. Whenever you see a camouflage 4-wheeler. And they've dipped that in a vat, pulled it up through an ink film, and the camouflage is placed on there in one piece. There are some other processes now that are kind of replacing chrome.
Yeah, hydro dipping's is a big deal. I mean, we've got 3 guys in my area that's popped up in the last couple of years, and they do some amazing stuff.
But for the average Joe,
here you go. Talking right into that.
For the average Joe who just wants to get a nice black coat on there,
powder coat them.
Yeah.
And you do that in the shop.
Yeah, you can do that in the shop. If you grab an old oven and call Eastwood, and they have a little powder coat kit, and I don't remember what mine cost, but it's been so long ago. But they're not
expensive. They've raised a couple $100 the last 5 or 6 years, but the equipment's gotten better.
Yeah, so basically you can hang them up on a hanger and you spray them.
Yep. Or if your wife's gone for the weekend, you can stick it in the oven at the house.
Stick it in the oven at the house.
And,
okay. My first wife hated that. Just saying. So if you like the one you got, you might want to. But yeah, you can bake your own powder coat. You basically put the part in there, get it up to 400 degrees. It burns off all the impurities. You pull it off. You let it cool out. You spray the product on there, the powder coat on there. Put it back in the oven for probably 35, 45 minutes. You pull it out, let it cool, and you've done your own powder coating right at the house. I mean, it's not and you can buy that stuff online. It's really
I mean, you can buy the elements and everything and build an oven for under $1,000 and have an oven big enough you can do frames in.
Yeah,
your electric bill suffers, but
the same bricks that they use to they're insulation.
Yeah, fire bricks.
Fire bricks for pizza ovens and all the rest of that. You can get them at Home Depot and Lowe's and stuff. You can build yourself a little rack and you can powder coat frames in there and stuff. You can do the powder coat.
Oh yeah, definitely.
Or you can paint them. You can the other side of it you can paint them.
So what we got here, we got our little centerpiece made. It's just kind of tapped in there right now, and we're going to determine right now where we should put this piece. Normally, if we've got a 8 to 10 inch rise, I like to be somewhere in the half to 2/3 area up to give it support. Because, I mean, you could put it down here, but it kind of takes away from the aesthetics, and you are losing some of your structure to it. So what we'll do, we'll kind of eyeball it here. I don't know. What do you think, Pat? What do you think? You want to go in this? You like it where it's at? So what we're going to do, we're going to go. So what we'll do, we'll mark a dot at 6 1/4 and a dot at 6 1/4. We'll kind of bump it up, center it. We'll clean it up here. We'll throw a couple tacks on it, and what we're going to do once we get it where we want it, and I'm going to mark it on this side because we're going to lay it face down and clamp it down to the table, figure out our pullback, make sure everything's good, make sure we're square before we start welding it.
And a lot of people are going to say, well, why wouldn't you stand it up to weld it? Whenever you can,
You want it laid down.
You want it laid down. You want to be welding. You don't want gravity affecting weld.
Now, I actually have a jig that I've made for doing handlebars that's a plate that actually bolts onto the edge of my table, and it's got a plate that comes up the back side of it that I have little arms that come off that grab the bar, and it's an L bracket that the bar lays against, and then you can move it this way or this way so you can lock it down tight. And then I do all of the welds in the fixture and then let it set and cool. And then once it's cooled, you unbolt it from the fixture. You know it's not going to move. This particular way of doing it, when you're welding it, you've got to go slow and be careful, because if I was to put a weld right here, it's going to draw this bar this way as I'm welding it and as it cools. And then you'd have to flip it over the other way to draw it back the other way. So guys that are perfectionist and wanting to keep things perfectly straight and parallel, you have to take that into consideration, because welding does move the metal that
you would be surprised at how much metal will twist when you apply the heat.
6 1/4, right?
So when you're putting heat on that, it's going to pull it.
Oh yeah, it'll pull it.
So we're going to clamp it.
Yeah, what we're going to do, and why I'm marking this side is, we're going to put that clamp here and clamp this down parallel, and then we're going to figure out our rise. So there's our 6 1/4.
Did they bring the fuel? Oh, they did bring it. Okay.
Measure when you're doing this, not calipers.
Handlebars and stuff, I use the tape measure. When I'm doing frames, I have a couple calipers at my shop that I use. But when I'm doing my frames and stuff, I have the fixture set up, and the fixture's already pretty much pre-measured, and the fixture's actually stout enough that it's there and it's locked into place and it's not going to move. I got to thank Chris for the hammer that I was going to go get. But we'll tap this back up here. Yeah, there's an illusion because of right here. So we're square there. 10 minutes. We can do that.
We'll be riding out of here in 10 minutes. Just the torque of that holds the table.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
now we're going to do some measuring. Yeah, these tables are usually within about 4 thousandths of tolerance.
What are you going to do?
Measuring. So if I remember correctly, we were at about 12 before.
Yep.
So that hasn't moved, and I'm pretty sure this one has. A little bit. And the key here is, measure several times and weld once. We've been trying to teach Pat that, but
I know.
he's a slow learner.
Very slow.
So we got our measurement.
There's measurements. I love
Real close, we're going to lock this thing down.
care about the angle or anything.
It might.
You know what I do on this too, Perry? You can get these clamps, obviously, that are flat like that. You can take a piece of angle iron and just cut you off a piece that's about 1.5 inches, and it'll hold tubing then, and it'll do those angles and stuff. So,
we're going to measure one more time. We'll pull this curtain in here. We'll throw some welds on this, and we'll have a
money then,
pretty much mocked up set of bars.
Sexy dancing behind that, right? Kind of like a go-go dancer. Somebody go grab that other one? When I hold this, it pulls that one, and then this drops. And thank you. Oh, because we're in Washington, D.C., and they want us to have 3 curtains, man. We're safe. I feel so much safer now. And again, if you're just joining us on Facebook, or if you're just kind of wandered up, the reason we have to do this is because of flash burn. You look into the weld, it's just like looking into the sun. It'll burn your corneas. It'll actually give you a sunburn on your face, do irreparable harm to your eyes, though. And so you never want to look directly into a weld. So we do this. And I've been picking on the fire marshal here, but safety, safety, safety is always best when it comes to this, because you can really hurt yourself permanently looking into a weld. When you wake up the next day, within about an hour, you'll have a sunburn. Your eyes will be dry, and the next morning when you wake up, there's a medical condition called yellow gunk, and it's in your eyes.
Yellow gunk.
I mean, it'll be so thick that you'll have to pull your eyes open. I mean, it's like glue. So it's a bad deal. Obviously, I've done this before. Some people, when they're tack welding, particularly when they're MIG welding, you'll see them close their eyes instead of pulling their helmet down, and they'll look, and because they think their eyelids are thick enough to protect them. Your eyelids aren't thick enough to protect the cornea as your eyes, so now all you've done is burnt the back of your eye. You burnt your eyelids. And if you're ever having anything welded and the guy closes his eyes ever while he's welding, take whatever you had to be welded and take it someplace else, because you never want to close your eyes while you're welding. It's the worst idea ever. RJ is making with the welds. Time-wise. So RJ's got to be done.
So as soon as
I will be done in 2 seconds.
All right. As soon as, when we're done here in about 5 minutes with the handlebars that RJ Powell from Cutting Edge Customs is doing, we're going to come back after Alpine Stars and we're going to start War Pony. So if you want to see War Pony start, it'll be done. Jackie, while he's doing this, tell us what Progressive's got.
Here in the Progressive Parlor, we are still hooking you up, my friends, but you gotta hurry on over here. I am quickly running out of free swag and free goodies back here at the swag counter. So come on over right now and get yourself signed up for your chance to win our current grand prize giveaway motorcycle, that beautiful custom BMW Scrambler. This is the last stop, last chance to enter that contest. This is it. We're packing up at 5, heading home and giving that bike away. So come on over, get signed up right now on these iPads, and then I've got some free swag and free goodies back here at the counter. It's all absolutely free. It's all going on for only a couple more hours, though. This is it. Last chance. So come on over.
So essentially what we got,
Hi, Mama.
they're not finished, of course. There's probably a half hour or so of finished welding, and then blending in the welds at the bottom and clean them up. They'd be ready for your coater. And you'd have a finished set of handlebars. I'm not, since this is still hot and it's not finished welded, we're not going to unbolt them from this little jig plate yet, but you can get a pretty good idea of what you got. You want to grab them, see how it feels, make some motor noises maybe.
Well, that's it, folks. RJ, what do you think about sending those home with Perry?
I'd like to finish welding them.
All right, we can do that. If you're going to be around for a little bit longer.
Or worst case scenario, if we don't, let me get your address. I'll take them home, finish them up, box them up, mail them to you.
That'll be the thank you for hanging out and helping us, man. Appreciate it, man. It's
Definitely.
good.
Thanks for hanging
RJ
out.
Powell,
Nice
Cutting Edge
meeting you.
Customs, custom handlebars, ladies and gentlemen. We're going to try to start clearing some stuff off stage because Jackie's going to tell you about a really cool deal that's coming up here. It goes boom and it's real loud.
Well, stick around, folks. The fun ain't over quite yet here at the Progressive